Hello, everyone, and welcome to the October meetup of the Tableau Credit Union User Group, part of the overall Credit Union Analytics User Group community. And I wanted to welcome you to Measure Your Mission, How to Quantify Credit Union Impact, a big topic for this day. So I want to try and keep on schedule for you guys. A couple quick notes. If you have questions, and some of you may already have some, please go ahead and use the Q&A button. If you hover over the screen, you'll get that Zoom bar. And then feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. We're already getting lots of people from Delaware, New Jersey, Arizona, all over the place. So excited to see what kind of questions we get from today's presentation. We will be recording and sending out the slides and recording link after the presentation, probably on Monday. Okay, so today we are talking about a number of important things, but I want to jump in and give a couple of community updates because it's been a little while since we had our last meeting. I'm Charlotte Taft, and I am the organizer, but by no means the power behind the analytics community for credit unions. I am the Senior Director of Business Intelligence at Callahan Associates in Washington, D.C., where I work in normal times, coming to you today from Alexandria, Virginia, across the river. So a couple different things. First up, I wanted to say congrats to Clark Moorhead, who hopefully was able to join today, who won our e-learning contest. So we were given a free e-learning certificate to give to someone in the group. In our last spring tug, I did draw out of a hat. And so congrats to Clark, who's from Community Choice out in Iowa. So I did just want to say that if you want to learn more about e-learning, there's a bunch of great content. You can take specific learning paths or actually do the full classes that are offered normally in person or in live teaching virtually. You can do it at your own pace. So feel free to explore. If you have a Tableau subscription, it's actually very reasonably priced. Okay, so this is hosted today by the Tableau user group, but I did just want to take a moment and call out the fact that we have a ton of Power BI users in the larger community, and we are looking to get both the Tableau and Power BI and extended content scheduled for fall and winter. If you are interested in presenting or speaking, even for a 10-minute block, especially about Power BI, but about either, please give me an email. We've got some great people, we've done some great content in the past, but we want to start getting that out to you more frequently and across more topics. So my email is spattered throughout the deck, but is ctaft@callahan.com. So please be free to drop me a line. Next up, we are excited to launch Tableau office hours. So weekly on Fridays, I'm going to hop on a Zoom and welcome anyone who wants to join in for 5 minutes or for the hour to chat about any questions or sticky problems you might need help with. I by no means promise to have the answer or to pretend to be a Tableau doctor, but I am very good with research. So if I don't know, I will help you find out and I will not give up. So when you get this, as well as in the follow-up email, there will be an Outlook invite and you can just RSVP to that, join if you wish, and otherwise, no worries. But I just wanted to offer this up there and I'm excited to have some more conversations with folks about all of our favorite data. Okay, it would not be an October meeting of a Tableau user group without doing a little promo for a Tableau conference or TC21. This is happening in November. It is totally free and totally virtual. And so whether you're on Tableau or not, frankly, it's an excellent event to talk all kinds of different strategy, hands-on things and customer stories, connect with the community and learn about data culture through all the other topics. So highly recommend it. They actually just dropped the schedule today. So if that is of interest, the link will be here. And I just wanted to use this little preamble time, as I often do, to highlight a couple of different around the web resources. Interworks is a fantastic third party, as well as a Tableau Gold partner. And they actually are doing this on a rolling basis monthly. But for folks who are interested in the real getting started, jumping in with Tableau, this is coming up and will come up more in future. But this one is for next week to talk through all of the jumping off point parts with Tableau, and it is also free. This will go to you in the deck primarily, so I'm not going to read through it all, but I've got some impact resources, readings, webinars, as well as some great links, inspiration vizzes, and other connective tools for people who might find them useful. I did want to highlight that if you are not using Tableau Public, whether you're posting or not, but you can often find excellent templates, essentially, other people's excellent work and you are definitely encouraged to download, play around with it, and basically take ideas for your own use. If you're ever posting, definitely give them credit, but it's a great way to say, oh, that is exactly the bar chart I wanted. I want to see how they do it. This is a great way to do that. Okay, so 2 community questions have come in recently that I wanted to flag. And for either of these, if you have any experience or you're asking the same question, go ahead and reach out to me and I will connect you with the folks who asked them. The first one was whether anyone was doing cryptocurrency risk analysis. And so this credit union was looking at, they're seeing more member usage of cryptocurrency, and they wanted to know both the opportunities and risk considerations they need to be taking. So if you have any experience with this, we'd love to hear more. Drop a line to me at my email, and we'll get you connected with the person at the credit union who's asking that question and anybody else who might be interested in having that conversation. Second question, near and dear to my demographic heart, is whether anyone's doing householding analysis. So this credit union has been looking at and using their SaaS tools to try and group member households. So, but they're running into some challenges around the best way to identify head of household and to track households over time, which can be a very powerful tool for member engagement. So if anybody's been doing that and have luck or even don't do this tips, we'd love to hear from you as well. Okay, I think that's most of my member updates. I guess I should just say quickly before I hand off to our first presenter that a lot of this inspiration came from discussions we've been having at Callahan with credit unions we work with and amongst ourselves. And we are going to be talking a lot about the impact framework we've built. And a core component of that is the impact network. So if you're interested in learning more about how other credit unions are helping to define metrics, how they're reporting them, and opportunities to have these kinds of discussions with other credit unions, I highly recommend jumping on and looking up our impact network, joining it. There's no requirements to do so. You don't have to be a client of ours. If you are, we'd love you to join. And if you aren't, we'd love you to join and look forward to how we can all build and evolve the credit union story, especially as we continue to need to demonstrate the value of member-based cooperative finance as an industry. So on that note, I will introduce and hand over to Jen Davis, who is a colleague, she said to say, but is in fact my boss at Callahan, who is the VP of Information Services and Technology at Callahan. I believe you're coming up on 10 years, Jen. And she's going to talk through the cooperative framework, collaborative measurement portion of today's presentation, focusing on the framework that we've come up with and a lot of the thought behind it and the process involved with how we can make this happen and how it can be useful to other credit unions. So Jen, without further ado, over to you, madam. And again, everyone, please go ahead, pop questions in the Q&A box. Feel free to chat me directly if you have something that you're concerned about. And let's jump into our main presenter. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much, Charlotte. How's my audio?
Sounds good.
All right, in that case, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Give me 1 second. Charlotte and I are colleagues and we collaborate on many things. And I appreciate the introduction. So here we go. I'm so happy to be at this Tableau user group today. As she mentioned, my name is Jen Davis. I am lucky to oversee technology at Callahan and Associates, and I've been here just a drop over 9 years. I've been in the credit union industry, I should say, for just over 9 years. We were founded 35 years ago by a group of people who believed there was nothing more important than supporting, sustaining, and empowering the credit union industry. And if you look at our mission, you'll see that really hasn't changed. We're still the same company. I like to say our why has been consistent, our how has evolved over time. And a few years ago, we started thinking about telling the story and the cooperative difference differently. And I'm going to share a small personal anecdote because it's kind of how I think about impact. Like I said, I joined this industry 9 years ago. When I joined, I barely knew what a credit union was. I thought they were banks. I thought you had to be part of some special group to join. I didn't know, did they have checking accounts? Was it just loans? I had no idea. And in 9 years, I've gone from a novice to just a passionate advocate. And as you can imagine, when I hop on my Zoom family check-ins or, and before times in person, people ask you, well, what do you do? Why are you so into it? And it's funny because people often ask me, why are you so into credit unions? Like it's clear that you are, but why? And in that moment, it's so funny, right? Like, and I'm sure all of you have experienced this because if you work in the industry, you just know. But how do you explain it to people who don't? And so I have lots of options, right? I could say fantastic rates. I could say amazing member services. I could say community involvement. I could speak about the way credit unions were founded to serve everyone, not just people of a certain socioeconomic group. I could say any of those things and it would be true, but I really want to get people to join credit unions. And so what I do is tell stories. I like stories. I like hearing them. And in my 9 years at Callahan, I have heard so many stories about how credit unions have just found incredible ways to innovate and really creative ways to just serve their members and their communities. I think one that blew my mind was a recent story about a credit union that opened a remote learning room in their HQ for employees whose children were still remote learning and just couldn't leave them at home alone. As a mom with 2 little kids, let me tell you something, that's amazing. And that's just serving employees. And that's one of, I'm telling you, hundreds of thousands of stories at this point. And so after I tell my stories, I ask, well, you're going to join a credit union? And I'm proud to say I have gotten 9 people to join credit unions in the last 9 years. 9. And while I'm still very proud of that, I think we all know that 9 people or 1 new member a year isn't really going to sustain this industry that is so important and so helpful. And so, that takes me back to Callahan, where Charlotte mentioned, we really are talking about how do we communicate that difference? We all know that credit unions offer top shelf digital services. We all know that you can get so many financial products from your credit union. We know because we work in them. We hear about these things. But how do you explain that to people who don't know us and who don't have, the joy of being with me on a Zoom happy hour? How do we do it? And so we started talking about it, right? And the first thing we said was, well, we're going to need to define what it is. What is impact? What is community impact? It's a combination of every story. It's how a credit union is fulfilling their mission. It's so many things. But if I can refer back to a story Charlotte has shared on another one of our Tableau user group calls about just how hard it is to define an active member, definitions matter. Like, I'm sure everyone in this call is just kind of laughing a little bit or give me a chuckle. I mean, the point is, like, it's really important to know what we're defining, and knowing what impact is kind of important if we're going to use this to tell a story. More importantly, how do we quantify it across the industry? How do we do it? Sounds challenging. Sounds like a really challenging data problem, which I'm guessing sounds fun to just about everyone on this call because it's what we do. No one joined the analytics community and the credit union industry to just, run some basic reports and call it a day. That's not who we are. So at Callahan, we said, challenge accepted. Let's talk about it. The first thing we did, and as Charlotte mentioned, we have built a sizable impact network. We went to our network and we said, what do you think we mean when we say impact? That credit union difference, that kind of je ne sais quoi, that awesomeness of credit unions, like, what is it? And these are some of the answers we received. And as you can see, they were thematic. I liked how some went for definition. It's defined by strategic goals that we pursue in serving groups of stakeholders there. Measurable change as a result of difficult action. I like that one because it really reflects how causal impact is. Making a positive difference in the lives of our members, employees, and our community. So our mission, measuring mission. And we had about 150 responses just to that survey. I could go on for this entire session, but I will not. And for the record, there was a question in the chat. This is a 1-hour session and not a 3-hour, so don't worry. Moving on. So internally, when we spoke with our credit union impact network collaborators, there were a couple of key challenges that stood out, right? First of all, defining it. Let's just say it. It's hard. It's fluffy. No one on this call likes nebulous definitions. Everyone needs succinct data points. And the other thing was just a lot of differences between the credit unions that we even spoke to. Different goals. Like, what would you use impact for? A lot of them said communicating our story, but some even said, finding other credit unions and collaborating, which we love to hear. That's a different use case, different outcomes. We all serve, or I should say you all serve, pardon me, so many different segs in so many different communities facing so many different challenges and I would say opportunities. Obviously, how you measure your purpose is always going to be so innately unique. So again, that was really the big challenge. How do we deal with that? Well, different question actually. Why would we even want to touch that? It feels important. It also sounds really hard. And the more research we did, the more we realized, yeah, this is going to be a challenge. But again, we really believe that focusing on these areas and communicating that difference and finding a way to communicate our story and our industry to people who have not yet experienced it is crucial to our relevancy and our longevity. We've got to find a way to do this. And as our mission is to empower credit unions, we realized that, we couldn't give up. And you know what? We realized that each credit union is unique, and that is actually a strength. Because while we do want to establish some baseline metrics, we can find those unique stories and those creative ways, and we can put them on creditunions.com. We can put them out into the universe and help credit unions with the same or more similar definition of impact find each other. We could do that. And that really made it worth it. And that's why we continue to work on this, even though I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It was tough going in the beginning. So we started with some more surveys, as one does. We went out again to our credit union impact network and we polled them. And this little word cloud, everyone loves a word cloud, represents a lot of what we heard back. But we realized there were key themes. Everyone is different, 100%. But the key themes that we heard was that the categories of impact, the way credit unions thought about their mission really boiled down to serving their members, their employees. If you're not serving your employees, how can they serve their members? So that makes sense. The overall community, which I think says so much about the movement, because again, not everyone in your community is a credit union member. But if you serve everyone, that's the best way to get them to join and understand who you are. And the environment, many credit unions, especially those in areas affected by extreme weather this year, are focusing heavily on what they can do to ameliorate environmental issues in their area. And so again, like anyone who's taken a huge data set and tried to make sense out of it, the first thing we did was categorize, because categorization is fun. And we started speaking internally about the current tools that we had. How do we do this? How do we measure mission? We started asking questions. And I'd love at some point to understand how you guys bite into a big meaty project when within your credit union you're asked something new. But at Callahan, we start by just kind of thinking a little bit. We've been doing comparative analysis for 35 years. And so first we said, okay, what if we just took public data, 5,300, HMDA, census, and what if we overlaid it to answer questions like how many mortgage loans is a credit union producing in underserved or low income areas? Is that interesting? Is that useful? Or, what are certain loan products that credit unions are using in areas with high amounts of payday lenders? Are there ways we can change this? And through those questions, we realized answering those questions isn't impossible. It takes work, hard work. But again, this is a room full of data people. We don't mind. That's fine. So why not? So we've started working on that, and you will see the results of that in our tools and our content early next year. We're very excited about that. A lot of that work was done by Charlotte, by the way. She really is just the census and HMDA guru at this point. And we also heard so many stories. Again, you cannot speak to a credit union without hearing just these amazing stories. And so those were posted on creditunions.com. If you're curious about reading them, they're under our impact tag. And we're kind of thinking, we're interested. Can we do some AI on that? Can we analyze the different stories for themes, things like that? So that's kind of a side project. But we realized one thing. There was no way to avoid creating some kind of version, some kind of framework to at least start measuring impact. We just need a baseline, a directional baseline. Got to start somewhere. And so again, we came back to these four themes: the employees, the members, community giving, and the environment. And we vetted them with, again, our impact community. We set out some test frameworks and questions to credit unions that we work with in our cuff slip group, and we got some great feedback. these are the categories that we started with. Oh, we also scanned impact reports. All the impact reports that you create, we trolled the internet, trolled the internet looking for them, and we scanned them for themes and words as well, just to see if we could find some commonalities, and then maybe break them down by region, geographic region. Fun fact, there wasn't really anything interesting there. I was surprised. I thought there would be. Also of note is that a lot of the impact reports are actually part of the annual report. And so it was interesting to see how impact was folded in as another way of measuring credit union success. And so many credit unions do it. And so these are just some of the categories that we started with. I have to start somewhere. This is actually a screenshot of our framework. That is a fancy way of referring to an Excel spreadsheet. Rule one, we knew we had to make this data easy to submit. You know, I know many of the people on this call are familiar with so much fantastic technology, just really innovative ways to transfer data. But really, let's just start with Excel. We added features in our software that allow users to upload this data. And we tried to make it as clear as possible what format we were looking for and things like that. And so far, this is working for us. This is what we asked people to fill out. You'll notice this is just a screenshot, but each category only has about 20 questions. And that might sound like a lot, but you'll find that the fields are related. And they tend to be you tend to be able to pull them at once, I guess is what I should say. So that was helpful. And just some context on how this works. We decided that this would be a give to get data set. We realized early on that people were sensitive about this data. They weren't always, you know, everyone wanted to see it, but you have to give it to get it, just because if you're going to look at everyone else's, you should show them theirs too. It's only fair. If that makes anyone uncomfortable, no worries. Your data is your own. That's up to you. We made it possible to either email it to impact@callahan.com or upload it in software. Again, up to you, whatever's easier. And then we just made that data either accessible in our peer-to-peer platform if people have access. And if not, we made it clear that we were going to follow up with some detailed analysis when we hit critical mass. And that's still the case. And we decided the best way to communicate truly was via our impact network. We put a lot of thought into our ongoing newsletters and our emails. And so if you're interested at this point, I haven't lost you, the best way to stay up to date with or give feedback on these fields is to sign up for that newsletter and sign up for the network. So we kind of tied everything together. It's not just data. Data on its own, I would argue, is actually worthless if you don't have the context and the people to collaborate with around it. And so here's what we've learned so far. Shockingly, our first draft isn't perfect. I'm shocked. I mean, how many of you have gotten a new project where, you know, you walk into the boardroom with your first fizz, you put it up on the wall, you come back with 35 more questions and a couple of points that look strange to someone. No one is new to this. We were expecting this. And so, yes, we will evolve. And so as much as we appreciate the data people are submitting, what is so valuable is the feedback. You know, I had one credit union actually reach out and say, you know, we're going to give you our data, but you're not covering anything that we actually track internally related to our mission, just nothing. And that was helpful. Thank you. You know, it's what we want to know. We are under no impression that this is all 100% correct, perfect, never changing. And so that was really helpful to get that feedback. In pulling the data, we found that logistics is a key barrier. And what I mean by that is we have another data set, non-interest income, that we are also collecting from the industry. The thing about what we call NII data is that you can pull it all at once from your GL. That's one database. We have found that the data we're asking for is fairly easy for any BI professional, any analyst to pull, but it can be dispersed into different departments. And so logistics, like literally coordinating, emailing the spreadsheet around, that's the part that takes more time than actually pulling the data, which was heartening. And, you know, one challenge for this group, we would love someone to help credit unions make pulling this data more efficient. If V1 is an Excel spreadsheet we email you, is V5 automation? Between someone in this group and our team at Callahan, we can figure that out. But that's for another webinar. Credit unions are so humble. I've had at least 10 people reach out and say, you know, we love this project, here's our data, but we have to tell you, we don't think we're going to show up very well. We're just not impactful. And oh my gosh, it's so untrue. It's just so untrue. I realize this is a broad brush statement, which is unpopular with data-centric folks, but I'll tell you right now, no, every data set we've gone back is reflects ongoing activity and community impact in members and in employees. If you compare, as Charlotte has done, she's already done the analysis. And if you compare what credit unions are doing with overall state averages, you'll find that credit unions are actually above. That's just the way it is. Obviously, there are outliers, but overall, especially the credit unions that were worried, no, you're too humble. I'm willing to bet, an actual bet, that if you were a credit union, you were doing more for your members, employees, community, and environment than you even realize, because it is so built into the fabric of your organization. You don't even think it's impact, you just think it's life. And I love that, but we need to get over that, or we're not going to get critical mass and be able to analyze this data. Oh yeah, this is a collaborative project within the credit union. Rarely do we get a data set back for one person that hasn't passed through the hands of 4 or 5 others. Also within the credit union, it's been heartening to find that there are people who have been assigned a sole task of overseeing impact, or grants, giving, foundation work, all of these things. There are lots of people in credit unions who have been assigned this kind of work, as I will, categorize it. And that's a really good sign. It means we are already allocating resources to understanding and vetting and communicating our difference. Also fun, we've already seen credit unions start collaborating. To folks who came to our Impact Network meetup, I guess a month ago, a couple months, the other day, they've already reached out and they're starting to work together. And they're starting to look for ways to collaborate on community impact projects and fund them together. And so that is so heartening to see, because as much as, I'm a data junkie, I want to see trends, I want to see baseline. The most important thing we can do to help the industry is to connect all of you. That's what we're here to do. We're here to provide context, put out those stories to the world, and make it easier to communicate that difference. But that's it. The rest is up to you. And so I urge you, I hope what you'll do is to dive into the data that we are asking for this year. I can tell you already, we will add new metrics to the data set next year. And we do supplement it in our software with profiled data. These are the areas that we are looking at now. Even if you don't want to fill out the spreadsheet and you're just not interested and you really hate what we've gone with, please tell me. Please, I guarantee you, I would relish that conversation, because I want to learn. We want to learn, I should say. I apologize. How do we improve? How do we evolve? How do we get this better? We're doing this for the industry. It's fun for me, but it's not going to change the way my company grows. It's going to change the way the industry grows. And so any advice or feedback is so welcome. And then ideally, once our data is available, and again, it's available in different ways depending on how you work with Callahan today. If you are a subscriber, you can go into peer-to-peer, access it yourself, perhaps visualize it your own way. But if you do, please share, or at least send to Charlotte, and just think differently. I'll tell you, one credit union, one of our fields is, do you offer volunteer time off? And one credit union CEO said to me, we don't, but just seeing that question made me wonder, should we? That's great. Have that conversation. Think about it. It might not be right for their credit union. It might not be, but maybe so. So use this data set to just inspire and think differently. And I know every analyst on this call, again, your biggest hope when you visualize data and when you tell that story is that your stakeholders will pick it up and take some action, work with it. So that's exciting. And again, keep asking questions, keep giving us feedback. And then again, the most important thing is that, you collaborate with each other. So in case you are curious or hopefully excited about this, or again, you think we're just like totally wrong and you want to join the effort so you can fix things and just have a part in this conversation, any of that is welcome. I would advise you to join the Impact Network. I believe the link is in the chat, and we'll add it again in a little bit just so you can sign up. Please share your data. We need that baseline. We need to start somewhere, right? We can't, what do they call that? Analysis paralysis. We have to start somewhere. Definitely share your impact report. We love reading those, and they help us find areas that we may have missed. And we will happily share those with the industry, anyone who wants to find them. We cover them frequently on creditunions.com. You do not have to work with Callahan to sign up for creditunions.com. So that's another way to learn about the impact that your peers are having, or tell us your own stories. Are you doing something creative and innovative for your members, employees, community, or the environment? I'm willing to bet you are. And if you're sitting over all of your internal databases, I'm betting you can tell a really good story with your data already. So tell us, we'll tell everyone, and then you can all share the wealth and the benefits of what we're learning. And together, let's communicate that credit union difference. Let's grow the size of this industry, because that's why we're here. And with that, I am going to stop sharing and turn it back over to Charlotte, I believe, for our next presentation.
Yes, thank you, Jen. That was wonderful. I really appreciate it. And I will take over the screen share if I can choose the correct option, the slideshow. Okay. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jen. That was wonderful. I do want to just give everybody a quick check-in. I have been slated to do a quick session on visualizing impact data. After that, in about, I'd say 10 minutes, we are going to jump into a Q&A session. And we're joined by Doug Robinson from Vermont Federal Credit Union up north from here, where I'm sure there is some leaf peeping on the horizon. And I feel sorry for using that term again. And to give a sense of the experience of trying to gather this data that they've had, answer questions, and get into some of the nitty-gritty. But I wanted to talk a little bit about how the heck do you take this and tell a story with it? And as I looked into it, and up here on the screen, you should hopefully be seeing all of the really almost rolled up categories of the numbers we have, of the topics that roll to numbers. And one of the ones that we had identified was the total value of commercial loans to underserved areas. And one of the top questions we've been getting from people who are trying to fill out the framework has been, where do I go with this? How do I even, what is underserved? And I wanted to jump in and give a little bit of an example about how there's a couple different ways with Tableau and with Excel, for example, to get into that. So to take a step back for a moment, and underserved has been very much a topic of conversation. NCUA is much more interested in things like that. It can affect your field of membership expansion plans and a variety of other impacts. CRA, for example, not to delve into touchy topics, but the way the CFPB, which is, I believe, to the extent of my knowledge, the way the NCUA is defining it, it defines underserved as an area where during a calendar year, according to HMDA data, there is a county where no more than 2 creditors have extended covered transactions secured by first liens on properties in the county 5 or more times. So the zoom out moment there is bank desert, not to use the 4-letter word bank, but where are there opportunities for credit unions to make a community difference in the financial wellness and financial longevity of potential members and members? And this could be something very complicated, but I wanted to give you an example of how you can actually put this together and just identify whether or not you are active in an underserved area. You probably know this, but in terms of a formally underserved area, defined underserved area, there's a way to do this pretty quickly. Or, for example, are you originating loans in an underserved area? So the way I'm going to show you is using 3 data sets. And as I got into this, I started getting more and more complicated with it, to the point where I actually went ahead and said, you know what, if people are interested, I think I'm going to go ahead and schedule a full hour session of this. So there will be a session on this in November. There'll be an update for people who sign up to the list on this, where we can go through how you can look and pull all of your HMDA originations, link them up to specific census tracts, find out if they fall into all sorts of designations, and do a couple of other types of analysis. Today, I wanted to jump in and just talk a little bit about, okay, do I have HMDA loans in an underserved county? And we're going to walk through that in Tableau in probably too fast speed, but I wanted to just go through that. So to do this, you need 3 things. Well, really 2, but 3 for the example I'm giving. A list of underserved counties. That is from the CFPB, and I have given it to you. I will make sure that all the links are very clear in the final sent out slide deck. If you click on these, though, you'll get my cleaned up data source that tells you if a county is underserved. a list of your branch locations. This is helpful just to understand where things are happening. If you have a list and you know your county, that's great. If you just have the address, you can actually really easily go to the census geocoder, which I've linked here, and upload it, and they'll give you your latitude and longitude, your county code, which we're going to use to join these tables together. And then a list of loans. So not working for a credit union, I do not have access to core data, other kinds of LOS data that might tell me enough information about a lender and a borrower to use for this demonstration. So I went with HMDA, which we can get very easily. And I've linked here the link here. There's actually a browser, and I have shared the wrong screen, but you can essentially go in and download all of the mortgage loans that you originated and then reported to HMDA in the previous year. And it has a ton of geographic information as well as other pieces of information along with it. You could do it for competitors if you like, for example, and do a contrast. But for this demonstration, we're just looking for a list of loans. And I have selected a credit union from my home state of Michigan, Frankenmuth Federal Credit Union, to be our example here. Now, for our purposes, as Jen was alluding to, definitions do matter. And we do want to just be conscious of how this works. So origination location or borrower location. Origination location meaning, is it from a branch? What if it was on the phone? What does that mean? So I'm going to show you where your branches are versus these areas, but what we're going to want to key into is borrower location. So there is a very easy way to do this in Excel if all you want to answer is the question, am I active? Do I have branch footprint in underserved areas? So over here on the left-hand side, we've got a list of branches for Frankenmuth. Now, you want to add in zip code if you wanted to look up more information using the census geocoder, but all you need for this purpose is the county name with county appended. And then you can VLOOKUP the file that you can get at this Excel link, which is the CFPB file of all of the underserved counties in the US. And all you have to do is add a column to look it up. And then I added a column that just said underserved and put in this with a little if NA and a VLOOKUP. And you're able to see which of your branches exists in a underserved or a quote served, my alternative word, area. Now, this gets you a certain degree, but to be able to get into some advanced analysis, you could do this if you had your loan level information, but I'm going to do it in Tableau for us, and I'm going to try and take about 5 minutes so we can get into the Q&A. So how to in Tableau? We're going to take these 3 data sources. We've got our branch information, our underserved county information, and all other counties, just so we can map it nicely. And then I downloaded all of Frankenmuth's HMDA loans from 2020, and that's what we're going to pull together in order to make this quick and dirty dashboard, which shows you the counties that are underserved, and all the dots are Frankenmuth branches. You can see the distribution of loans, total number of HMDA loans with no other filters, just originated loans between underserved and served counties, and then a breakdown of total loans, average borrower income, and total loan value by the county. So to do that, I need to quickly change my screen share. Give me one moment. And we will switch to Tableau and share. So we're in Tableau. I have the 3 data sets added. Again, in the full session in November, I'll go through all of the specifics of joining and linking these various things. In here in counties and branches, I've got our CFPB counties and an extract. And do it. Moment. Okay, so you can see down here, we've got information from CFP counties. We've got our branch information. And because in the CFPB county file included all of the other counties, we've got some additional information. So we're going to go ahead and join that to the HMDA file. I've been using county code because it's our sort of our general geographic area. And I just wanted to highlight one quick little trick you might run into. So when I first said, okay, I want the county code, also known as the county FIPS code, and I wanted to join it to the one in there, but I got a red exclamation point error. So I went in and I made it a string calculation. All I had to do was change it from the number to the string. Again, more detail on that later. So we've got our basic data set up here. And we've got whether a county is underserved, the county number, the name, the state. I am filtered to Michigan on the other side. And then information about the branches that I grabbed from our database, but you can get from your own system as well. I like having latitude and longitude because there's a way in Tableau to go ahead and add a data point using that, which I'll show you. But for starters, one of the things we might want to do is build a table that shows us the number of branches we have in counties that are served or underserved, just like this. So to do that, we want to go ahead and say, okay, I've got my county name. I can drag it over here. I can drag branch ID, which is my branch indicator. And I'm going to do count distinctive branches. Okay, so we don't have any branches in these other counties. So why don't we filter that and set it to 0? Oops, I'm going to set it to 1. So we're only showing counties on this list where Frankenmuth has at least 1 branch. Okay, here we go. But which are underserved? So we have the indicator of whether something is underserved or quote served, and we can put that on here. I think it might look a little better like that. And we can sort it. We can sort it. So it looks like Frankenmuth has 8 branches in Tuscola County, which is an underserved county, rural, and Huron County, 1, where my mother grew up, which is why I chose this example. Now, there's also the desire to build a map, and that's part of the fun of this. I am a big map aficionado. Now, to do this, you're just going to go ahead and you're going to grab your county FIPS, which is that code for county, pop it in here. Oh gosh, what does that look like? Let's change that to a map. I don't know why it's doing that color. And then let's go ahead and put in the CFP, the underserved, as the color. Like that. Okay. I don't really want to see all this other noise, however. So I am going to go up to map layers, and I'm going to turn the wash out of the background all the way down. So we've just got Michigan here. And then I want to map out the locations of the branch locations for Frankenmuth. Now, if you had created your branch sheet and you'd done the census geocoder, you'd have a latitude and longitude for that. And then you can just use the Tableau make point and then latitude and longitude field to make a point. And with the new map layer format, you can actually drag it over. And we've got this here. Now, I don't love that. I'm going to make it circles. Oops. Add branch ID. And I'm going to make those black so we can see them. You can zoom in. So we can see all the branches in the counties where they have underserved status. Now, what does this have to do if we really need to know if they issued loans in those areas? Well, we joined up our HMDA data for Frankenmuth to this. And doing that, we actually know the number of loans we have. And I added a loan number column. So why don't we just say, instead of showing the whether it's underserved or not, I want to see the number of loans that Frankenmuth originated in those counties. So we could drag loan number onto county. And I want the count distinct of the loan to be the total loans. And these are 0. We can see they did a certain number here. What if I only want to know the number in the underserved counties? Well, I made a calculated field to do that. So I said, if it's an underserved county, then let's show the loan number. So I'm going to pull that on instead. And because it is still the loan number, I'm going to say county. We can see the color contrast is just there. And I believe I'm running out of time, and I would really like to be able to give the adequate amount of time to the Q&A. So I'm going to stop there. But I'm just going to say that with that data, you have everything you need, plus a little bit of tips and tricks we'll give later to build exactly this, to see the distribution, to see things like average borrower income, the total loan value put out there, and more. So I thank you for indulging me. I was actually nervous. It's the first time I've done a Tableau tutorial, however abbreviated. So I'm going to end there and just switch back over to PowerPoint and introduce our Q&A joiner. So I wanted to introduce, let me give you 1 second. I'm going to just switch over to our PowerPoint. And again, we will be doing this together in November with some additional data and additional detail, especially if people have specific questions about ways we might use the data, whether for underserved or not. But I wanted to move on. I will share the Tableau workbook and data files with you. But I want to move on to our Q&A. So without further ado, I wanted to introduce to Doug Robinson, who I noted, who is the VP of Strategy and Innovation at Vermont. Doug, if you're able to unmute, that's great. But I wanted to jump in and ask Doug a couple of questions. Again, anybody who has questions as things come up, please go ahead and put them in the Q&A box. But Doug and I were speaking a couple of weeks ago about something entirely unrelated to impact data and got onto the topic of how it was going, because Doug was very interested in impact. Vermont FCU is super interested in impact, and they've actually been working to complete the framework. They have not uploaded it yet, however. And Doug, I wanted you to just give a little bit of context in how you might have gotten started with the process of even gathering all of these data points, if you're able to chime in.
Absolutely. Can you hear me, Charlotte?
Maybe just a little louder.
Okay. How about this?
That's pretty good.
Great. Well, again, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it. And I have to say, watching you in Tableau is like magic. That was an incredible tutorial. So thanks for enlightening us on that.
Happy to
in
help.
terms of how we got, in terms of how we got started, I think perhaps like many credit unions on the call, our journey with impact started with a realization that many of the activities and outcomes that are related to our mission and our impact were just not showing up on our reports. Right? They weren't being monitored or discussed in the same way or to the same extent that we manage our financial outcomes. And so we acknowledged a need to develop a much better way to incorporate these impact-related activities into our discussions on strategy and innovation and what we hope to achieve for the future. One of the challenges at first was that the landscape of impact work is just so large and extensive, as we talked about and as Jen, elucidated earlier. And what we've found was the most tangible way for us to get started is with some form of assessment process. That's what really attracted us to Callahan Impact Framework, because not only does it give us a kind of a clear direction and a starting place, but also we have the ability to do some comparison and benchmark. So with those things in mind, we got started. And as you mentioned, we haven't uploaded yet. We are actively working to complete the framework, the spreadsheet. And a lot of the lessons learned that Jen shared are freshly on my mind today, and I can relate to many of the things she said.
Wonderful. And that was not meant to call you out for not uploading. It was more, I think, the fact that this does take work. When you jumped in, were there any things that stood out as just, if you had to call out, those major lessons learned that you might give advice to people who want to go ahead and submit the framework as they get started beforehand? Really?
Absolutely. I think Jen had some great points. Impact work, as I'm learning about it, is inherently holistic. I mean, we talked about it impacts employees, members, community, the environment. And so all of those perspectives are being brought to bear on the data. And so this means the data you need is likely decentralized and interspersed throughout your organization. And so what I found is, luckily, I know who to go to for certain, pieces of data, but we've been pulling data from everything from our payroll system to our performance management system, our mortgage LOS, our collection system, GL, and core. Those are just a few of the databases that we touched to get some of the data on this framework. And I don't say that to be, to detract or to worry anyone that's starting this journey. I think there's it's just, you may be going into data sets that you don't often touch or you don't have access to today. So I think that was a big lesson learned. In addition to that, on the framework, there are some questions that are just questions, yes or no questions. And for those, we've spoken to various committees that we have. So we talked to our charitable giving committee, our employee experience team, our facilities committee. And I guess a big aha moment for me was realizing how interconnected our credit union is and how each of these areas are contributing in a meaningful but unique way to our impact. And before doing this process, that wasn't as on the surface. And so the process of going through this collection I've learned a lot. I've been with our credit union for over 10 years, and I will tell you, I've learned a ton through the process. And I think it's starting to bring together areas of the credit union that we don't typically see, in the same conversation. And so that's been very exciting. And the other thing that we're realizing is we may not be able to answer all of the questions on our first upload. As Jen said before, don't let that be a barrier. I took that to heart. Don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. And in many ways, I think some of the questions that we don't have answers to today, to me, that's almost more instructive than if we did have a really easy answer, right? It means that we have more work to do and indicates some areas where we can focus on. And so that to me is a tangible outcome of this work.
Excellent. I liked how you laid out the different areas you really have to go to pull data. Was there anywhere that you had to kind of start from scratch or else go into an unexpected place to try and find data / information that might not even be data yet to try and wrangle that in?
I think one of the areas that surprised me the most, and I don't know if this directly answers your question, but we don't often go into the mortgage LOS system and the data within there. We often wait for that data to flow into our core, and we kind of take it from there. And so some of the questions that we thought would be really easy to get to, like around our percentage of first-time home buyers, things that we really care about, turned out to be harder to get from a data standpoint than we originally thought. And that was very instructive too, because again, we have so much focus on these impacts areas, but not as much oversight and data to monitor our success. And so for us, it was a wake-up call that, we need to make sure that our systems, like our LOS and other systems, are serving the larger purpose that we have, which is to track and to monitor some of these key metrics. That was an aha moment.
Excellent. Did you get any pushback from anyone, or were people pretty well invested in the concept of the idea?
So far, I haven't received any pushback. If anything, it's generated a lot of interesting conversation internally. And Jen mentioned that some of the data is sensitive. Some of the data around employee data, like living wage and 401k, I can imagine how in some institutions that may be sensitive or more confidential information that raises eyebrows when you're asking for it. But overall, I think it's kind of been a great conversation starter. And for us, that's really where we are. We want a framework and some data that we can use to generate conversation internally and to begin to organize ourselves around some of these topics. And so from that perspective, it served its purpose well. I will say that I think the other big benefit I've noticed is, a lot of times we're living in a world with so much information. The folks on this call that do data analysis, the need has never been greater. But I also see a lot of using data just for the sake of data. I can relate to, generating reports that haven't got looked at, let alone drive a conversation or make a change. And so what's really been refreshing with this framework or this set of metrics is that for me, it's kind of a return to what data analysis is supposed to be about, which is measuring what matters. As Jen talked about earlier, telling stories about what's happening in our credit union and how we can make it better. And so from that standpoint, it's been kind of refreshing to focus on data that we know is important and can really drive some change within.
Excellent. And I totally agree. It's that sense of with data so much, there's the so what, right? I know that a lot of people who are doing transitions or trying to restart or start analytics groups have found, okay, would you, do we want to add things? Do we want to take things away? But are people actually looking at this? But the so what of this can be so big for an individual credit union and just across the industry that that drill down is not just, did we have X number of call hangups? That kind of thing. Doug, do you feel like there's anything that you would add to the set? And that can be a totally free-form question. Requests are always accepted.
Absolutely.
Is the question what I might suggest adding to the framework? Was that the question?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, that's a tough one. That's so tough. Honestly, I think that a lot of the questions on here have prompted more discussion and more realizing that we have a lot more work to do on impact than I originally thought. So if anything, it's expanded my horizon. I'm sure, though, that you're familiar with other models of measurement, such as GAB-V, like the Global Alliance of Banking Values, and B Corp, I think, is another popular assessment tool. And I wonder how much of those assessment tools overlap with the questions being proposed by Callahan. It would be great if this tool kind of incorporated or encapsulated the main scope of those other popular frameworks as well. So making sure that there's some alignment between these other major frameworks that are out there would be my recommendation.
Absolutely. Anybody, we are almost to the end. So if you do have additional questions, pop them in that Q&A. Jen, anything else striking you?
No, I can't think of anything else, but it's really fun to hear about Doug's journey, and thank you so much for sharing, Doug.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you both for having me, and appreciate the opportunity to share. And I just hope everyone has a best of luck with your own analytics journey with impact, and hopefully we can come back together and see where we are as a group.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, everybody. This has been a really fun session from a leadership point of view, and I do apologize for the kind of super speed Tableau run through. Mason put into the Q&A some great ideas about identifying whether or not members are living in underserved areas and distance from branches. And I think that's something that we can incorporate into the November webinar. All these things end up rolling up to what do we know about our members that can help us understand what impact we need to have. So I'm very much hoping that we can put some of these ideas together and keep getting it in and getting more conversation with all of you. So thank you so much for joining us. I know we're at the top of the hour. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. We will be sending out the both the webinar link, the slide deck, and the Tableau, the workbook, as well as the data sources for you to play around with if you'd like. And I hope you can join us at future events and hopefully for our Tableau office hours, if that applies to you. Thank you very much, everybody. Really appreciate your time. And my email, Sam seeing that in the Q&A box, is ctaft@callahan.com. Thank you so much to Doug and to Jen for presenting, and for the folks at Tableau for helping us host this, and to everybody who attended. We're doing it for you, so ask us what you want, and we'll give it to you if we can. So thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of the Thursday and straight on to the weekend. Take care.